All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. We finally made it here, although it's only been 4 days, but still. Ready for the weekend? Yeah. Me too. Me too. We've been on holidays. We're not used to getting up and coming to school and doing work, so I think we need a little bit of a break. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so today what I have for you is we'll finish off that theoretical background stuff, and then we'll talk a little bit about critical thinking and what it is and how it works. Okay, so let's jump into that. Yesterday, you'll remember we were talking a lot about Christopher Columbus and who he was, and we said that it would be very interesting to not very interesting. It would be very easy to think of the story of Christopher Columbus as just, yeah, it's just a story, right? It's just a bunch of facts. Yes, it happened. So what, right? But what I was trying to sort of convince you of yesterday is that the story of Christopher Columbus is not simply a bunch of facts. It is a story with political meaning, right? And the the way in which we know this story and the reason that we know it in the first place, right? The reason that we're talking about Christopher Columbus and not some other explorer of the time, is not only what he did, but what he did means. Okay, and so we said that here Christopher Columbus, the story that most people are told is that he's a brave explorer who discovered the new world and possibly even proved the world was round, although we were a little bit dubious of that claim yesterday, even so. But still, that's sometimes part of his story, right? But that's not the whole story with Christopher Columbus. And as I described to you, historical records suggest that he was actually probably a pretty awful person, treated a lot of people horribly, enslaved indigenous people, and kind of set in motion the beginning of the end for many traditional indigenous cultures, and set in motion or helped set in motion the Atlantic slave trade. And so a lot of kind of misery came from his discovery, right? And again, many of those things are not really his fault, but he's the first one, right? He's the one who sets that in motion. And so, we could tell any kind of story about Christopher Columbus. We could tell a good story or a bad story, or maybe a story with a little bit of both. But the story that we're told often has to do with power in society. Who is in power, and who wants to tell what kind of story? And so, again, I said that here in Canada and in the United States, the story we've traditionally been told about him is that, yes, he is a brave, heroic explorer that set out across the sea and discovered this new place and allowed us to build this fantastic country that we've built. And again, that's true, right? That is what happened, right? But there's a lot of pieces of that story that are missing. And again, if you speak to indigenous people, you might hear something different, right? You might say that, well, this guy showed up here and claimed land that wasn't his, enslaved people like me, and like indigenous people, enslaved indigenous people, and kind of set in motion more explorers, more colonists, more military, and that was kind of the beginning of the end of our way of life, right? And so, they might not like Christopher Columbus very much at all, and they might question why he has his own holiday, right? Why should we look up to this guy? He was awful. And indeed, in some places in the United States, they're starting to change it. So Columbus Day has now become Indigenous Peoples Day. Not everywhere in the US, but some places. So the story of Christopher Columbus, why we know it and how we know it, has to do with political power, right? And so I said there's lots of examples of this. The history of Canada was certainly taught in such a way that excluded Indigenous perspectives earlier on, right? I said that, everything we teach you here in school is because we want you to know it, or more specifically, because the government wants you to know it, right? And so, again, I said in other classes we'll teach you about democracy because that's what the government wants you to know, right? Education is a political project. So what you think about Christopher Columbus, to some degree, depends on who you are, right? Because we socially construct our knowledge, right? It's not objective, it's not purely fact. The reason that we know it the way we do has to do with power, right? Political power. So yesterday too, I said that I provided us some guidelines for engaging constructively here. I said that, this class never becomes really, heated and argumentative, but it's important to remember a few things because sometimes people can get confused or can kind of trip over things if they're not careful, right? And I suggested that we should strive for intellectual humility, right? We should know that we definitely don't know everything, and I certainly don't know everything. And to be honest, I learn every time I teach, well, anytime I teach any course, but anytime I teach this course, I learn new things, right? I discover new things. And so, I'm very aware of the fact that I do not know everything, right? I'm working on it, but I definitely don't. The knowledge, or the difference between informed knowledge and opinion, we'll talk about that very shortly. So I'll leave that for now. Letting go of personal anecdotal evidence, right? So we have experiences, we have things that have happened to us, people we've met, things we've seen and heard, and all of those things are important because that kind of helps us to generate our view of the world, right? We understand the world through our experiences. But our experiences may not be reflective of everyone's, right? And so if we want to see things, especially if we want to see social inequality, we have to look at broad social patterns, okay? For instance, it would be very easy for me to say, well, there's no racism in Canada. Nobody's ever said anything racist to me. So we don't have racism here. Is that a ridiculous thing to say? Why? It is, but why?
Because there probably is racism.
It probably is, but why hasn't it happened to me? Yeah, because I'm a white person, right? Racism in Canada is not usually directed at white people, right? Sadly, it's usually coming from white people. Not all the time, but sometimes. Yeah, I'm not a target of racism in this country, right? And so it's probably not surprising that I haven't felt it, right? Nobody's said any racist things to me, about me. But it would be a mistake for me to say that, oh, I haven't experienced any, so I don't think there is any. That would probably be a mistake, right? Because, again, my perspective is kind of limited, right? My personal experience is limited. And in this case, it's limited because of the color of my skin, right? I don't have any experience as a non-white person. I've never been a non-white person, right? Similarly, I've never been a woman, right? I don't really have that experience either. And so, there's lots of things that have happened to me, there's lots of experiences I've had, but my experiences might not reflect everyone's experiences, right? And so if we want to see social inequality, we have to look at the broad picture. And part of that is that little, that recycle bin thing that we were doing yesterday, right? I can only see certain sides of the picture, right? Or I can only experience them anyway, right? other people can see things, some things better than I can. If you have any defensive reactions, it's a good kind of indication for you to think about why you're feeling the way you're feeling, right? So again, I took an Indigenous education class. Lots of students felt angry or guilty or upset or confused. And, you know, it was all of those things were because we were hearing things that we hadn't heard before, and we were uncomfortable with them, right? Because it changed who we thought we were, right? It changed what we thought Canada was. And we were kind of struggling with that knowledge versus what we thought we knew about ourselves and our country. And it was uncomfortable, right? It was uncomfortable. It was a difficult process, right? And it's something that, you know, if you pay attention to Canadian media at all, you'll see that people are still trying to figure out and work through, right? How should we feel about what's happened here in Canada? And again, if you don't quite know the details, don't worry, we'll get to that in a little bit, okay? And the last thing, again, this is the recycle bin example, but also recognize how your own positionality informs your perspectives, right? So again, I'm a white male Canadian. That does affect the way I see the world, right? Doesn't mean I see things exactly the same way as all other white male Canadians, right? It doesn't mean I can't understand the perspectives of other people, right? But I also kind of know where I am, right? I know where I sit. I know where I come from. I know how society looks at me, right? So I wouldn't say that, oh, we have no racism in Canada, because I know that, of course, that's ridiculous. It would be ridiculous for me to say that because I hadn't experienced it, because of course, right? Of course I haven't experienced it. I know my positionality, right? I know that I'm not kind of the target of those kinds of things. So, of course, they haven't been directed at me. Of course, it would be easy for me to say that it doesn't exist. But of course, I also know better, right? I know that it does. Okay, is that all good? Is that okay? Good, good, good? Okay. Let's switch gears a little bit. Oops, sorry, I got some extra slides here. There we go. Oh, I guess this is a part of what we're going to talk about, but I just kind of throw it in at the end. You know, when we're kind of debating things, usually, good morning, usually what people want to do is debate and disagree with ideas, not people, okay? So if if we were having a debate on something and we disagreed, really what we want to do is kind of attack the idea, right? We want to say, no, I don't think this is a good idea, or, you know, the way the government is doing this is kind of, they're going in the wrong direction. It needs to be, this is what we really need to do, right? We want to kind of debate ideas, not people, right? And unfortunately, you know, if you pay attention to media, especially if you pay attention to social media, that's not what people do, right? They attack each other, right? And again, that's not really what you want to do. If you want to, you know, if you want to gain a better understanding, and if you actually want to embrace other people's perspectives, like we talked about, we have to debate ideas, right? And, you know, it's one thing to say, I think this is a stupid idea. It's another thing to say that I think this is a stupid person, right? Those are different things. So we want to, you know, it's okay to disagree with ideas. It's okay to think that ideas are wrong or make no sense or are ridiculous, but, you know, we don't want to attack people, right? But again, we often see this in media and social media and comment sections of things. People just go at each other, right? And that's not what you want to do. Okay. Now, so this keys into a number of things. One of the core competencies that we're working on in this class is critical thinking. It's an important thing. Chen, you've been through this before, so I apologize. You might have a little bit of deja vu here. Um, um, this is an important thing, and I was thinking about it over the break, and I think this might be the most important thing in school at the moment. Like if you can gain some mastery of critical thinking, then it will really help you. It will really, really help you. And I think it's that important. And the way that we'll kind of approach it today might seem kind of Mickey Mouse, kind of not very complicated, but I think it's a really important thing in all aspects of life, and it has a huge effect on everything, every aspect of your life. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think this is an important thing. But let's start off with what do you think about when if somebody says to you, well, somebody is saying to you, if I say to you, what is critical thinking? What does that mean? What would you tell me? What would you tell me?
Maybe when you think globally, deeply.
Sorry, say that again?
Maybe when you think about something deeply, like globally.
Okay. When you think about something deeply, right? When you're really kind of paying attention to your thinking and how you're thinking about something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a good start. Okay, what else can we add to that? If you're thinking critically, or what is critical thinking? Don't know?
Thinking something until no. Maybe focus on their detail.
When you focus on the details?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. So you're not kind of just making a quick decision kind of thing? Yeah.
Maybe when you think something, analyze and maybe give a solution.
Okay, when you think about something and analyze it and then maybe provide a solution. Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure. What do you think? Bosco, David, Cleo? Want to add?
I'm not sure.
Not sure? That's okay. That's okay. 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 So you analyze, you evaluate, and then you respond in some way, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. It's more than that, but that's a good start. Also, in this class, never be afraid to say I don't know. Like, tons of stuff I don't know. I discover stuff I don't know every day. You're not supposed to know everything. It's okay. Except if it's a quiz, then you're supposed to know on the quiz. But otherwise, you cannot know things, right? That's all right. Yeah, okay. Let's untangle this a little bit, because I think we have kind of a vague idea of what it is, but let's get some detail. I'll start out by saying this, is that critical thinking is about what you believe to be true. Okay? And all of us have beliefs, right? All of us have oh, sorry, the Russians are hacking me here. Hang on. There we go. It's not even an election, Putin. Leave me alone. Yeah, so we all have beliefs. We all have things that we believe to be true. And those beliefs are important, right? Because based on what we believe, that kind of influences and informs our choices, right? That influences what happens in our life, right? For example, who amongst you thinks that after you finish your high school stuff here, you'll go on to like university or college or something like that? Maybe BCIT, or who's going to do something after this? Probably, maybe. Probably most of us, right? Maybe some of us don't want to think about that right now, and I 100% understand that. But most of us probably think, yeah, I'll probably do something else, right? I'll go to university or college, or maybe I'll do some courses here at Columbia across the street, and then I'll see what I want. You'll do something, right? Now, for those of you who are going to do that, why on earth would you do more schooling? Haven't you had enough yet? 12 years? You've only been alive for like 17 or 18, and you've spent most of it in school. Haven't you had enough? Isn't it like, I don't want any more school, I want to live my life? Why would you do more school?
Because you can't live your life without education.
Because you can't live your life without education. Why not?
It's just something that's really important.
It's something, and why is it so important? You're right, but
To get a job or something, to make money,
yeah,
you need education.
right. Yeah, we have this belief, don't we? Right? We have this belief that if I go to university or college, or if I get some sort of training in some sort of field, that'll be good, right? I'll be able to get a job, I'll be able to make some money, that, you know, I'll be able to have a lifestyle, right? I'll have an apartment or a house or a condo, and, you know, I can buy things that I want, and I can have a life, right? That's our belief, is that if we get education, that will lead to a better life for us, right? That's the belief, right? And I think it's true, right? I think that's a true belief. But you can see how your belief in that idea is influencing your path in life, right? If you didn't believe that, if you thought, no, education doesn't make a difference in the quality of my life, then you might not do any more, right? So that belief is kind of steering you one way or the other, or maybe your parents are behind it, gently nudging you in one direction or another. Sometimes that happens too, but there's a belief behind it, right? And so you can see that beliefs are actually important, because here we have a belief that's influencing the course of your life. I think it's a good belief. I think it's true, right? I think that belief is true. But you can imagine how troublesome it would be if the beliefs you had were actually false, right? If they were not true. If that was not true, that going to school would benefit you, well, you'd probably be wasting a lot of time and money, right? Going down the wrong track, doing something that won't get you where you want to go, or will have negative consequences. So the things you actually believe to be true are important, because they influence your choices, and that influences your life, right? So we do want to make sure that the beliefs we have are informative, and that they're true, and that they're right, and that they're leading us toward something good, not leading us toward something bad, right? So that's what critical thinking does. Critical thinking is not about what we believe, but it's about, should we believe the things that we do, right? Is this belief that I have, is it worth believing? Is it right? Or if somebody's trying to convince you of something, if they're trying to say, here, believe this, critical thinking is about being able to look at it in detail and evaluate and analyze it, and come to a decision about, should I actually believe this thing? Is it worth believing? Or is it BS, right? We need to be able to figure that out. And sometimes we have good intuition, right? Sometimes things people say, you're like, that's not true, that's ridiculous, right? Sometimes we have good intuition about it, but sometimes it's much harder to figure out the truth of things, right? And so critical thinking, the point here is to help us to do that, okay? Step 1. Really what we're looking for here are statements and claims, right? A claim is that something is true, right? Chocolate is the best flavor of ice cream. Cats make the best pets. The Edmonton Oilers are the best hockey team. I am the best teacher at Columbia College. all of those are claims, right? Some of them may be true, some of them may be untrue, some of them may be more a matter of personal taste, but they're all claims, right? I am saying something is true, right? We can't think critically about questions, right? Because questions they're not saying that anything true is true, right? Will it rain today? Is there a God? Will we make it all the way through this term without everybody getting Omicron? Well, we can think about it, but we can't kind of critically evaluate it because it's not making a claim about something. It's not saying the way things are or the way things aren't, right? So we need somebody to make a clear statement, a clear claim, right? Chocolate is the best flavor of ice cream. Cats make the best pets. Oilers are the best hockey team. I am the best teacher, right? It's one of those. We need a clear claim about those things. Yeah. So we're looking for people who are saying that something is the case or something is not the case, right? A very clear statement. And again, we're going to use these statements to form or to identify arguments, okay? And again, arguments aren't, what you have with your parents or what you have with your siblings or girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. That's not the kind of argument we're talking about. An argument is a series of statements that come together to try to convince someone of something, okay? And again, they are critically important. If you can do this, if you can put together a good argument, it will be very helpful to you, okay? Even here in school, lots of times when students write papers, and if you go onto university, you will write a paper, you kind of need an argument, kind of need to be stating something clearly, right? Lots of student writing is kind of rambling all over the place. Have you ever done this? You're writing something for school and you're like typing and you get like 2 pages in or 3 and you're like, yeah, this is going really good, awesome. And then you're like, okay, I don't know what to write anymore. Right? And part of that, I have done that. Part of that is because you probably don't have a clear argument. You actually don't know what your paper is trying to say, right? And again, if it's not really trying to say anything, it's very easy to get to that point, right? Because you're just talking about things that you know, and then you're like, okay, now I don't know what to write, right? Because you've just kind of rambled, you've rambled around, and now you don't really know where you're going, right? And so arguments are important to kind of structure that paper. If you know what you're trying to say, then you know what to say next. And most importantly, you know when you're finished, right? And maybe we can get into that a little bit later. It's also very important it's very important for school, it's very important for university. Depending on the career you go into, if you go into anything in academia, academics make arguments all day long, right? Scientists make arguments all day long, right? I did my experiments, I collected my data. This is what I think it means, right? Here, believe this. I'm right. Right? That's what scientists do. If you go and become a lawyer, what do lawyers do? Make arguments all day long, right? No, Your Honor, my client didn't kill this person. Here's why. Argument, right? Better the lawyer's argument is, more successful they are, right? The better they are at this skill. Politicians are the same, right? If politicians can make a good argument, they're going to be very persuasive, right? They're going to persuade the people, they're going to persuade other politicians, right? Even if you want something as simple as more money at your job, if you want a raise, you can't just go in and say to the boss, hey, I want more money because I don't have enough stuff yet, right? You can't say that, right? You need to convince him or her. You need to make a good argument. You should pay me more money, and here's why, right? And if you can do it, and if you can do it well, it's very helpful. So an argument is this. It's a collection of statements, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe more. And we kind of divide them up into premises and a conclusion, okay? And so the conclusion is the main thing that someone wants you to believe, right? So I suggested a few conclusions a few minutes ago, right? Chocolate is the best ice cream. Cats make the best pets, etc., etc. Those are conclusions to the argument. That's the thing I want you to believe, right? The main thing I want you to believe. The premises are statements that support that conclusion. They give you reasons to believe the thing I've told you, right? So again, if I tell you that cats make the best pets, great, but on its own, it's not really anything, right? It's just my opinion. I haven't given you any reasons to believe that cats are better than anything else. So there's nothing much to be done with it, right? Cats make the best pets. I prefer dogs. There's no critical thinking to be done, right? There's nothing there. But if I really want to convince you, I need to provide you with a proper argument. So far, so good? Cleo, you okay with that? Okay. So, let me make an argument to you. Okay? Yes, I'm going to make an argument to you. And it's going to be about this. It's going to be about coffee. Okay? I have some coffee in here. There's no Baileys or anything in it, I promise. There's no alcohol in this. I enjoy my coffee every morning. I like the taste of it. It's very comforting. Now, let me make you an argument about coffee. So here's my conclusion, okay? Here's the conclusion of my argument. I think you all should drink coffee. Okay? Not for real, just for example. I think you all should drink coffee. Now, on its own, that's kind of nothing, right? That's kind of an opinion. You have no reason to believe what I tell you, right? That's kind of not worth anything, right? But what I need to do is I need to give you reasons to believe me. I need to convince you, right? So again, as good critical thinkers, when someone says something like, I think you should all drink coffee, the question you need to ask yourself is, why should I believe that? Right? What are you going to give me? What reasons do you have for me to believe that? Okay? And so if I'm really interested in convincing you, I've got to make a good argument. Okay? So I'm going to make it. I'm going to give you three premises. I'm going to give you 3 reasons. First one is this. I think you should drink coffee because coffee is delicious. And you'll probably enjoy the taste of it. Okay? One premise. Don't judge anything yet, just go with me here. Second premise is that it's very inexpensive to drink, right? It won't empty your bank account. You can enjoy it on a budget. Right? My third premise is this: you should drink coffee because the caffeine will kind of stimulate your brain and give you a little buzz, and it'll help you study and get better grades. Okay? 3 premises. I'll put them up on the screen there so that we can keep track of them. It's a very simple argument, right? I have one conclusion: you should all drink coffee, and I've tried to give you 3 reasons that you should believe me, okay? So, the question is, when we're critical thinking, we wanted to think in detail, right? We wanted to think deeply about this. So let's think deeply, okay? We'll evaluate my argument, see what we think. Don't jump to any conclusions yet. You may be looking at this and saying yes or no, or having some sort of combination of feelings, but we're gonna press pause on those and we're gonna evaluate this argument logically, okay? First thing we need to do is figure out if these premises are true, okay? Because if the premise isn't true, not very helpful, right? So let's go to the first premise. It is delicious. Is that true? Is it true that coffee is delicious?
Yes, some.
Yes, to some people. Who drinks coffee here? Who likes the taste of it? Okay, a couple people. Are there a couple people that don't drink it because you don't like the taste, or other reasons? Other reasons?
It's bitter.
What's that?
It's bitter.
It's bitter. Okay. So we're kind of split here. Some people like the taste, some people don't. Okay. This is a bit of a tricky premise, right? Because this premise needs to be true for it to work. But it's a personal taste thing, right? Not everyone enjoys the taste of the same things. So what could I do to prove this to you that coffee is delicious, or at least that most people find coffee delicious? What could I do to prove it to you?
Maybe describe this flavor.
I could what?
Describe coffee's flavor.
Okay, I could kind of describe the flavor to you, right? It's like a party in my mouth. Okay. I could do that. What else could I do?
By example.
I could bring in coffee for everyone, right? From Tim Hortons or Starbucks, or maybe I could bring in my little drip coffee machine from home and I could make some coffee here and you could all try it. Maybe I could do that. What else could I do? Prove that coffee is delicious, or at least most people find it delicious. What could I do? What could I do? What about Instagram survey? I could do a little story. Hey, do you like coffee? Yes, no, the two little buttons, right? I could do a little survey amongst people around me, right? Some of us have lots of people following our Instagram, and we follow lots of people. So maybe we could get a good number of responses, right? So I could do a few things, right? I could bring in some coffee for you. I could talk to you about how it tastes or what you should be looking for. I could do a survey to try to figure out, and maybe I could look at some statistics as well, right? Maybe I could look at how many people drink coffee in the United States or Canada. There's probably millions of them, right? Coffee's pretty much available wherever you go, right? If you go to a restaurant or a cafe or pretty much anywhere, you can get coffee, right? Which kind of speaks to its popularity. People seem to like this beverage because it is available everywhere, right? So would you agree, even if you don't like the taste of coffee, would you agree that I could probably prove to you that most people, or at least many, many people, like the taste of coffee? Could I prove that to you? I probably could, right? I might not be able to convince you personally, right? You might drink it and go, ugh, but that's possible. But I could probably convince you that this premise is mostly true, right? You okay with that? Okay. Let's look at premise number 2. Coffee is inexpensive. Is that true? Is it true that coffee is inexpensive?
Use the pen, which cafe.
Okay, it does depend where you go, right? If you go to Starbucks and order a big fancy thing, money, right? If you brew it at home, cheaper. Okay, how could I prove this to you? That coffee is inexpensive. How could I prove that to you?
You would show how much it costs on average.
Okay, I could do the math, right? How much coffee costs? Maybe compare it to. Could I compare it to other drinks? Maybe. Yeah, like 350 milliliters of coffee versus the same of Coke or Pepsi versus bottled water versus Monster energy drink versus Red Bull, Arizona iced tea, whatever you want, right? I could even make a little graph, right? I could make it really fancy. And do you think I could kind of prove to you that coffee is inexpensive? Yeah, I think I could. I kind of feel like we all feel that, yeah, it's not very expensive, right? Unless you get the big fancy thing at Starbucks, then it's a little pricey. But I think we could all probably agree it's fairly inexpensive, right? Fairly inexpensive. It's certainly not very expensive to brew this. My coffee costs, I buy a little thing like this. It's about $5. It lasts me probably not quite 2 weeks, maybe like 10. Well, it might last me 2 weeks. Might last me 2 weeks. So, you know, $5, $2.50 a week divided by 5, it's 50 cents a day. That's not bad, right? It's pretty cheap. Okay, what about the last one? It will stimulate your brain, help you study, and result in better grades. Is that true?
No.
No? Why do you say no? Because you tried it and it didn't work? Okay. So personal anecdotal experience suggests that this is not true, right? Or at least not true for you. Has anyone tried this and it has worked? Yeah? When you're in the finals and you need to stay awake and stay sharp
Yeah.
to study, yeah, it's helpful. Sure. That's what the caffeine does, right? It's a stimulant, right? It stimulates your brain, it helps keep you awake, keep you sharp, right? Think it gives you better grades? Avitej's experiment just like was a total failure, eh? How could I prove it to you? How could I prove that this premise is true?
Try on student.
Try what?
Try on student.
Try it on students? Okay, so I could experiment on my students like guinea pigs, right? I could give them a test, and then I could give half the class coffee and no coffee for the other half and just see how they perform, right? You can't experiment on students that way. It's kind of unfortunate. I could do that, right? What else could I do to prove this to you? What else could I do to prove this is true? It starts with an R. Yeah, I could do a little bit of research, right? I could dig into scientific journals. I'm sure there are scientists who have done tests on university students to see if coffee or caffeine helps them get better grades, right? And maybe I could find papers like that, and I could say, look, here, these scientists did a bunch of studies, and look, they found that, students who had coffee 3 hours before their exam actually scored better than ones who didn't. Maybe I don't know if that exists. I'm making it up, but maybe I could find that. Right? So, if I found that kind of research, could we kind of say that this premise is true, even if it didn't work for us personally, right? Okay, maybe true. We'd have to do the research, but maybe true. Okay, so that's good, right? We need our premises to be true. Premises that are false make weak arguments, right? What if I had a premise in here that you should drink coffee because it will give you superpowers and you'll be able to fly? That sounds great, but it won't be a good argument because it's not true, right? It's false. So we need all our premises to be true. And I think in this case, they are, right? For the most part, they're true. Now, second part of evaluating this is, do the premises logically support the conclusion? So in this case, what I'm asking is, are these premises reasons why someone might choose coffee? Are they reasons why you might agree with me that you should all drink coffee? Okay. So let's look at the first premise. It is delicious. Is that a reason why someone might drink coffee? Yeah, right? They might drink it because they enjoy the taste, right? And I think most of us, when we drink something other than water, we drink it because we enjoy the taste, right? David, do you enjoy the taste of that thing? Oh, the thing you're drinking.
Oh, it's milk.
It's milk? Yeah, but you enjoy the taste, right? Yeah, right? We drink things because we enjoy the taste of them, right? So I think this is logical support, right? People drink things because they enjoy the taste of it. Number 2, it's inexpensive. Is that a reason why someone might drink a beverage? Because it's inexpensive. What do you think? Might someone drink something because it's cheap?
Maybe half.
Half and half?
Yeah. If you think for what is worth, like if you pay someone who get training,
Okay. Okay.
so
All right. Maybe Cleo, you were shaking your head before.
Like water is free, right?
Because what?
Water is free.
Water's free, right? Water's the cheapest thing, right? Why not drink that? It's true, right? So there are less expensive things to drink for sure.
Maybe it's a cheap source of energy.
Okay, yeah, maybe it's a cheaper source of energy, the coffee. Yeah, maybe, right? If you need a little boost, maybe it's cheaper than Red Bull or Monster Energy drink or cocaine or no cocaine. Yeah, if you need that extra boost, it might be a cheaper way to get that. Let me just turn this premise around. Would people drink coffee so much if it was really expensive?
no.
Probably less, right? You know, this is about 50 cents a day. I'm okay with that, right? If this thing cost me $20 a day, I'd be drinking water like Cleo over there, right? So maybe people don't drink it just because it's inexpensive, but if it was really expensive, they probably wouldn't drink it very much or at all, right? So people are kind of able to drink it because it's inexpensive. So this one's okay, I think, right? It's not kind of bulletproof, but yeah, people are able to drink it because it's not super expensive. Okay, not bad. The last one, logical support for the conclusion. Is this a reason why someone might drink coffee? To stimulate their brain and help them study and get better grades? Is that a reason why someone might drink coffee?
If it's true,
Yeah, right? You've done it for that very reason, right? David, you've had coffee for that very reason, right? To help you study and get better grades, right? Yeah, we have actually done this. So yeah, it's a reason why someone might drink coffee because yeah, that's the plan, right? That's what we think it will do for us. So here I have 3 premises. They're true, and they provide logical support for the conclusion, right? So I said that premises that aren't true aren't really of any use, right? It'll give you superpowers and help you fly. It doesn't really help our argument because we all pretty much know that that is bogus, right? That's not true. So that's not helpful. What if I said, okay, I have 3 premises here. Coffee is delicious, it's inexpensive, it stimulates your brain, helps you study. And one more premise, new premise, the beans are grown in Colombia. Okay. Now, is that true? For some, right? Coffee beans are grown all around the world, but they kind of stereotypically come from Colombia, right? Is that a reason why someone might drink coffee? Probably not, right? Maybe if you were Colombian and you were like, you know, oh, my national pride, I'm going to drink my national drink or something, maybe, right? But most people probably don't know or care, right? I don't know where the beans come from in this coffee, right? And most coffee drinkers, unless they're really hipsters, they probably don't know either, right? So again, that's a premise that is true, right? The beans do sometimes come from Colombia, but it's not really logical support for the conclusion, right? It's not a reason why people drink coffee. They don't drink coffee because it comes from Colombia. Most people don't care, right? So again, for us to have a good strong argument, we need premises that are true and our logical support for the conclusion. There are a reason why someone might drink this stuff in the first place. Right? So, now that we've done that, yeah, would you say that I have a decent argument here? It's a good argument. You don't have to agree with me at this point. All we have to do is say that, yeah, this is a well-constructed argument. It's true, and the premises are true, and they support the conclusion in a logical way, right? You may agree with me, you may not, but it's a good argument, right? And again, if we had gotten to this point and it was a bad argument, right? If I was telling you the beans came from Colombia and it'll give you superpowers and it'll help you fly, and we could pretty much take that argument apart and say this is not worth anything, right? Premises are not true, they don't support the conclusion. Get out of my face, right? This is no good. But we have a decent argument here. So I'm going to press pause on this. We'll give ourselves a break because we've been working hard and it's Friday and it's not fair to have to work hard on Friday. Take a little break. We'll come back and then we'll try to poke some holes in this. Okay? We'll try to see if we should actually believe an argument like this or not. Okay? All right. Let's take a little break. Okay. So here I had presented you, we were talking about critical thinking. I presented you with an argument. It had a conclusion and three premises. We kind of worked through it, and I hope I have convinced you that this is a this is a sound argument, right? This is a reasonable argument to make. All of my premises are true, or mostly true, or I could probably prove them to you, right? If I did some research and some legwork, I could probably prove to you that they're true. And they're all logical support for the conclusion. They're reasons why people might drink coffee. Now, all you have to agree with at this point is that this is a sound argument. This is a decent argument. But you don't have to agree with me, right? Now, why might you look at this argument and say, yeah, but Mike, I still disagree with you? Why might you still, or why might someone look at this argument and say, yeah, it's a good argument, but I still say no? Why? Why might you still say no? I don't think I'll drink coffee, or I don't think students should drink coffee. Are there?
Maybe I just don't like it.
Sure, right? So my first premise was kind of based on personal taste, right? And if you just, if Chen just cannot stand the taste of coffee, he might say, yeah, okay, it's inexpensive, and yeah, sometimes I would like a little extra buzz to help me study before an exam, but I just can't drink this stuff. It's gross, right? I'm gonna have a Red Bull or something, right? So that's possible, right? There's an element of personal preference here, and Chen might say, you know what, I just can't. Mike, you got a good argument, but I just can't do it. That's fair, right? Why else might you reject this argument?
Maybe the fear of getting addicted to it.
Sure, right? There's the idea that coffee is a stimulant. The caffeine is a drug, right? It's a very soft drug, right? It's a very socially acceptable one, right? There's a big difference between cocaine and coffee, right? But it is a drug nonetheless, and some people feel it is addictive, right? And so some people might say, I kind of don't want to drink this stuff because I don't really want to get addicted to it. Fair, right? That's fair. And I haven't talked about that in my argument at all, right? So maybe. Why else might you say no to my argument here?
Allergy.
The what?
Allergy.
Okay. You might have an allergy to coffee, or to the beans, or to the oil in the coffee beans, or something like that, right? If you have some sort of dietary allergy, yeah, you're going to say, yeah, you have a good argument, Mike, but I can't do it, right? Just like Chen, I can't do it. What else? Why else might you reject this argument? Why else might you reject this?
Maybe because you like Red Bull or something.
Okay, maybe you're addicted to your Red Bull. Yeah, maybe you already have your kind of go-to drink, right, for this kind of thing. Maybe you don't want to have coffee because you really enjoy your Red Bull, and you enjoy it so much that you don't want to try anything else. You're good. Maybe. What about health effects? Is all this coffee healthy? No? Yes? Maybe no?
I think so.
No? There's a lot of science out there. Some says coffee is bad for you. Some says coffee is good for you. I don't know. But the fact is that I haven't really spoken to that in my argument at all, right? You might have concerns. You might say, hey, Mike, I'm concerned about drinking all this coffee. Is this going to have any effect on my health, right? I haven't told you anything about health at all, right? So you might look at my argument and say, okay, you made a valid argument here, Mike, but you're totally overlooking health concerns, right? Is this a healthy thing for me to do? Especially because I'm 17 years old and my brain is still wiring and changing and growing. Is it a good thing for me to consume caffeine? Is that a good thing for me to do? You haven't told me. Right? So you might say, okay, valid argument, or valid argument, but you're missing an important thing. You're missing the health piece. And I would like to know about that. Sure. Why else might you reject my argument? Might be an allergy, you might not like the taste, there might be health consequences that we don't know about or that I haven't explained to you. Why else might you say no to this argument?
Or maybe it's a better deal.
Yeah, well, that was the Red Bull thing, right? If you have something that you much prefer to drink and does the same thing, maybe you don't want to try it. Some people have religious restrictions, right? Some people's religions say no drugs, no alcohol, nothing, right? And caffeine is kind of a drug, right? It's a soft one, right? It's a really soft one. It's not a gateway drug to, heroin or anything, but still it works that way, right? So some people's religion might prohibit them from drinking this, and they might say, yeah, Mike, you've made a good argument here, but unfortunately my faith, my religion prohibits me from drinking it, so I'm not going to. Okay? Which is fine, right? Because my argument here is quite simple. I haven't explored every aspect of coffee, and so there's reasons why people can, admit that I have a good argument, but also say, but I'm still going to say no, right? And here's why. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Time's flying here, which is okay. Okay. So we did that. We evaluated the argument. Let's try to identify some arguments of other people. Okay. So I told you what my argument was. I told you what the conclusion was. I told you what the premises were. Let's see if we can figure out in these 5 arguments what the conclusion is and what the premises or premises is. Okay? So remember, the conclusion is the main thing that someone is trying to convince us of. So the first one here is, because assault rifles have no peaceful civilian use, the Canadian government should ban assault rifles. Right? And assault rifles are those military ones, that go brrrr. So what's the conclusion here? What are they trying to get us to believe? Number 1. True, but just work with what we have here. Don't read anything into it or paraphrase. Just work with what they say. Government should ban assault rifles. Okay, so again, as good critical thinkers, ask yourself, why should I believe that? What's the premise? Yeah, because they have no peaceful civilian use. Okay, so this is a very simple argument, right? It's got one premise to it, which is fine, right? But that's the secret to identifying conclusions and premises, right? The main thing that they're trying to convince you of, and then ask yourself, why should I believe that? Right? And then the premise should answer that question, right? It should tell you why you should believe it. Again, you don't have to agree with it, or you don't have to think it's a great argument, but we're just trying to identify the pieces of the puzzle here. Let's go to the second one here, the Globe and Mail. Globe and Mail is a national newspaper in Canada, so they write for all across Canada. The Globe and Mail's report on business says that people should invest heavily in stocks. Therefore, investing in stocks is a smart move. What are we being asked to believe here? What are we being asked to believe? That stocks are what?
Something good to invest in?
Something good, yeah. So investing in stocks is something you should do, right? You should be investing in stocks. Investing in stocks is a smart move, right? Why should we believe that? Why should we? Yeah, because the Globe and Mail says that people should invest in stocks, right? Now, this is not a great argument, right? Because this argument is why should we do it? Well, because they said so, which is maybe not great, but there's kind of something missing here. There's kind of there's an implied premise, right? So, because if we're going to believe this argument, then do you think the Globe and Mail's report on business, do you think they know what they're talking about? Who just heard of the Globe and Mail this morning? Yeah. So, yeah, if you just heard of the Globe and Mail this morning, you don't know who they are. You don't know if they're trustworthy or not. Do they know what they're talking about? Are they crazy? Who knows, right? You don't know. So we need kind of another premise in here, right? So imagine I added in the premise, the Globe and Mail's report on business is widely seen as a financial authority in Canada. So in other words, these people really know what they're talking about. They really get finance and economics in Canada, right? So if I put that in there, that makes it a little bit better, right? The conclusion is we should invest in stocks. That's a smart thing for us to do. Why should we do that? Well, because the Globe and Mail says that we should, and the Globe and Mail is an authority, right? They really know what they're talking about. So when they say we should do something, we should probably do it. That would be a smart thing to do. Follow their advice. Right? Okay, when Joseph takes the bus, he is always late. And he's taking the bus today, so I'm sure he's going to be late. What are we being asked to believe here?
That the bus may be late?
Yeah, sort of. You're kind of combining things, but just try to break it apart and deal with the pieces. Yeah, those are again pieces of the puzzle. What are we being asked to believe? That Joe is going to be late today, right? Again, ask yourself, why should I believe that? Why should I believe that Joe is going to be late? Well, because today he's taking the bus, and what happens when he takes the bus? Always late, right? So you can see how these things build together, right? Joe is going to be late today. Why should we believe that? Always late when he's on the bus, and today on the bus. This example is kind of maybe a little bit dated. Some things that go directly to streaming platforms are actually pretty good nowadays. But in the past, wow, this movie is on iTunes, but it was never even shown in theaters. It is not a good sign when a movie goes straight to iTunes without being shown in theaters. It must be pretty bad. So what are we being asked to believe here? What's the one thing we're being asked to believe?
That the movie is bad.
Movie is bad, right? It's a bad movie. Why should we believe that?
Because it's not in the theater.
Wasn't shown in the theater? Yep, went straight to iTunes. Those could be the same premise, or they could be two, either one. But yeah, it wasn't shown in theaters, went straight to iTunes, and yeah, that's not a good sign. When that happens, when we see a movie that doesn't get shown in theaters and goes directly to iTunes, not good, right? That's what bad movies do, right? So yeah, so we should believe that this is a bad movie. Good. 3 premises, right? 3 logical premises. This one might be a little bit tricky, but let's try it here. So, no one should buy a beer brewed in the United States. Old Guzzler beer, that's a horrible name for a beer, but whatever. Old Guzzler beer is brewed in the United States, so no one should buy it. This one's a little tricky, but what's the thing we're being asked to believe? Yes, but that's a premise. That's why this one's a little trickier than the other ones.
No one should buy that beer.
Yes, don't buy that beer. Don't buy that Old Guzzler beer, right? Why should we not buy Old Guzzler beer? Because it's brewed in the United States. And what do we know about beer from the United States?
No one buy it.
You should not buy it, right? Which actually is true. Well, I don't know. I think the Germans and the Belgians make better beer than the Americans, but that's just me. Yeah, so there we go. So yeah, we figured them out, right? Again, they're very simple arguments, right? Some of them only have one premise, but that's okay. We're getting practice identifying the main thing that someone wants us to believe, and then the reasons they're trying to give us to support it, okay? Have a look at this. So, the cost of the new XJ fighter jet, $650 million. The cost of 3 of these bombers is $1.2 billion. The Canadian government intends to fund such projects. Is this an argument? Is this an argument? Start with a conclusion. What are we being asked to believe? Or are any of these statements giving us reasons to believe another one? Kind of not, right? Yeah, so there's not really an argument here, right? These are just 3 statements. They're kind of about the same topic. They're about the same topic, but there's no argument here, right? They're just telling you this costs this costs that. The government will spend money on these things. The end, right? There's nothing there. But again, we could make it into an argument with a little bit of editing, right? So have a look now. So Canada's Auditor General. The Auditor General, if you don't know, is the office of the government that checks everybody's budgets and makes sure they're spending their money properly. Okay, so they audit everybody to make sure that the money is being spent the way it should be. So Canada's Auditor General says that any weapon that costs more than $50 million will actually impair our military readiness. It's actually going to hurt our military readiness. Cost of the fighter jet is $650 million. The cost of the bombers is 1.2. We should never hurt our military readiness. Therefore, the Canadian government should cancel both of these expensive projects. Now we've got an argument, right? What are we being asked to believe? Yeah, good. The government should cancel both of these projects, right? Why should the government cancel these projects? Right, so both the bomber and the fighter jets are over 50 million, and we don't want to impair our military readiness, right? And how do we impair our military readiness? Yeah, by purchasing weapons that are more than $50 million, right? So yeah, the government should cancel these projects because any weapon that's over 50 million impairs our readiness. We don't want to do that. We don't want to impair our readiness. And again, both of these are more expensive than that. Okay. Last thing. Yeah, there we go. Last thing. So this again, I got to get a better example for this because it's so dated. 100 years ago, when dinosaurs still roamed the earth, if people wanted to know how much money was in their bank account, they actually had to go to the bank. Yeah. Now you just look at your app, right? You're just like, how much money do I have? Oh, okay. Once upon a time, you actually had to keep track right? And so you had to keep track of all the money you spent if you spent money from your bank account. And if you weren't sure, or if you just wanted to check, you had to go to the bank, go up to the teller, the person in the bank, and they would fill out your little bank book and tell you how much money was in your account. So you actually had to do the math all the way along to make sure you had enough money in there.
So that's good, huh?
That still happens? Yeah. Do you, once they kind of updated it, you got to bring your bank book and you would stick it into the ATM, and the ATM would it would print out on your book, and then you would know. You wouldn't have to go in. But yeah, you've experienced that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that was kind of, you know, depending on where you are, sometimes they still do that. It seems sometimes, you know, when I say that, students look at me like, you had to do what? But anyway, okay. So this is the examples from a million years ago, but that's okay. Alicia went to the bank to get a more recent bank statement of her checking account. The teller told her that her balance was $125. Alicia was shocked that it was so low. She called her brother to see if he had been playing one of his twisted pranks. He wasn't. Finally, she concluded that she had been a victim of bank fraud. So my question to you is this an argument?
No.
No? Why not? Why is this not an argument? Because what? Sorry, say that again?
Maybe it's an argument.
Maybe it's an argument? Okay. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's like a story. It is. It does read like a story, doesn't it? It kind of reads like a story. Still could be an argument, right? Most arguments are a little more direct and explicit, but it could be kind of in story format. Here's the trick. Here's the secret. It's that question, right? Why should I believe that? So let's pretend this is an argument. Let's pretend we agree this is an argument. What would be the conclusion to this argument, if it was one? Right. Alicia is a victim of bank fraud. That would be the conclusion if this was an argument. Ask yourself the question, why should we believe that? Why should we believe she's a victim of bank fraud? She went to the bank to get a more recent bank statement. Does that mean she's a victim of bank fraud because she went to the bank? No. Her balance was $125. Is that evidence of bank fraud? No. She was shocked that it was so low. Is that evidence of bank fraud? No. Right? If you're like me, you're shocked at your bank balance all the time, right? Every time I look at it, I'm shocked it's so low. So that's not it. Her brother was not playing a prank on her. Does that mean she's a victim of bank fraud? No, right? There's any number of reasons why her balance is low. Maybe she's just not good at keeping track of her spending, right? So that's not evidence either. And then, yeah, she concluded she's been a victim of bank fraud. So it doesn't really work, right? We ask ourselves the question, why should we believe that? And we don't really get any good reasons, right? We don't get any good premises. We just kind of get a little story about Alicia and what she thought, right? So, you know, David's right. It's really more of a little story about Alicia, right? It's not really an argument. It's not really asking us to believe anything. It's not really trying to convince us, right? And so keep in mind that question, right? Why should I believe that? And if you get answers to that question by what you're reading, then you're like, okay, now I have an argument, right? Now I can start to see, are these premises true? Are they logical support for the conclusion? If you don't get those, then you don't have an argument, right? You have a story, or you have an opinion, right? Cats make the best pets. Just an opinion, right? Doesn't mean anything. Okay, so I'm going to press pause there. I would actually like you to do a little exercise where you form your own arguments, but as you can see, we're kind of flat out of time here, so maybe we'll save that for for Monday, okay? Before I release you back into the wild, does anyone have any questions or things they want to ask or say, or if you want to do a little Friday dance, that's okay too. Don't mind. No? Okie dokie, people. That is all I have for you then. You can pack it up. I hope you have a nice weekend. Sleep as much as you can. Watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or Crave or Apple TV or Disney Plus or whatever. And I'll see you Monday, okay?